peeling. So peeling is just like it sounds. When the glaze begins to pull off your pot, and you can literally like pull it off like, you know, I don't know, like one of those, like a banana peel almost. You can sort of just pop it right off. What happens is that the glaze was too, like the shrinkage rate of the glaze was too small for the shrinkage rate of the cup, like extensively so, that it just said, no, I'm out, I'm done. Pinholes. Pinholes are small holes on the surface of your glass, like popped bubbles. So pinholes happen when we cool down the kiln too quickly. So all that glass, while it's melting, sort of the chemicals are degassing, the bubbles are popping, and all of a sudden it gets real cold real fast, and that glaze hardens. And the glaze bubble didn't have time to, you know, become part of the glassy surface, and it becomes a bubble, essentially, an unpopped bubble on the side of your pot, and that'll leave your pot open to bacterial growth because it didn't have time to adhere to the surface. Blisters are large bubbles that exist on the surface of your pot. So the blisters are going to look exactly like the blisters on your feet will look. It'll look like you've got a big, like, ugly bubble on the side, and it's going to be hard, like unlike the pinhole, which you can sort of scrape off, and that's the glass. The blisters are going to be not just the glass, but the clay body itself. So if we were to break it open, it would have a big hole in the middle. Last but not least, wipe your bottoms. I just want to put that in here now. So glaze is liquid glass, and when it melts, it will stick to the shelf. So when we get to the point where we're glazing, we want to make sure that we don't have any glaze on the bottom of our pot. Otherwise, it's just going to fuse to the shelf. However, we do have a few tricks that we can do in-house that will prevent this. You can use wax resist. So before we glaze, we would basically paint like a ring of wax on places where we don't want any glaze to be, and it'll fill up those gaps, allowing it to not be porous in just that area. And so when you go to clean it off, it'll clean off super easy. And the wax doesn't stay on forever, it melts off in the kiln, so it'll leave a blank spot. And people do this. They use wax resist not just for cleaning the bottoms of their pieces, but also as decorative elements. It can be it's a pretty technique sometimes to see used. We also use something called kiln wash on the shelves. Kiln wash is a flaky top coat of clay that contains no silica. So it's just aluminum, and it doesn't form glass. So if something drips, the kiln wash allows us to simply scrape it off. So I can take like a paint scraper and just go scrape the top layer, and it'll just pop off. And this helps us save those shelves, because those shelves are a little bit expensive. Alrighty, and these are our questions to sort of go over for the test. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing, and we're going to just do a quick round table, see who picked up what. So feel free to chime in if you know the answer. What can make clay explode in the firing? Got it. Good job. All right. When and how can clay be joined together? So this is something we went over in the Project 1 lecture. So when and how do we combine clay bodies? Yeah, Mai and Elizabeth, nail it. Macy, got it. Awesome. What is the main difference between low fire and high fire clay? Nice. Nice, nice, nice. You guys, you got it. Also, good point. It's not just the iron, it's the amount of heat. So heat and iron are the big difference here, because if it's got more iron, it can't go up to that temperature. Alrighty. What are the basic stages of clay? What are the ones we need to remember? Before firing. So before firing, what are our basic stages of clay? Nice. Nice. Everybody's real quiet today. Alrighty. So what is the name for the type of material that lowers the melting point of other ceramic materials?
Can you please repeat that question?
Yeah, absolutely. What is the name of the type of ceramic material that lowers the melting point of other ceramic materials? Flux, y'all got it. Alrighty. One last question. What are pyrometric cones used for? Got it. All right, cool. So something that was on the bottom of this question list that we didn't go over, and it has to do with kiln technology. So in ceramics, we can fire our pottery a couple of different ways. We have electric firing, which is what we are going to do here. We have gas firing, which we can also do, but we're not going to do this semester. We have wood firing, and we have something called raku firing. Not raccoon, R-A-K-U, raku. I'll type it in the chat so y'all know. Raku. And I'll just sort of go over briefly what those are about. So electric firing happens in a kiln. There's no actual fire. It's all friction heat. So we've got these little coils in the kiln called elements, and they vibrate really quickly next to each other. And that vibration causes friction, and that friction causes heat. And it's easy to sort of control and regulate that sort of kiln. Now, that type of firing is called an oxidation firing. These are not, once again, these are not terms that are on the test, but I think they're important to know. Oxidation firing is where we have a lot of oxygen available in the kiln, which that will affect how your glaze will act, because some glazes will change based on how much oxygen is present in the kiln. So most firings we're going to do are going to be oxidation firing. So a lot of oxygen is present. However, when we do gas firings, we do something called reduction. And that's because there's actual fire in a gas kiln. That fire, we all sort of know loosely that fire likes oxygen. It loves oxygen. It's going to suck up as much oxygen as possible. And when it sucks up all that oxygen, it will cause a chemical reaction in certain clay glazes, specifically ones with copper, and turn them into a bright copper red. And these are gorgeous, but they're really sort of hard to get because you can't control it. So let me just pull up. Alright, so I'm just pulling up some search engines to sort of talk about what I'm saying. So this is a copper red glaze. These are really gorgeous, and when you can get them, people get real envious of you because they're not easy to get. And you can only get these in a gas firing. So these gorgeous sort of like swirly blues. They're great. We love them. But you can only get those in gas firings. So reduction firing only happens when there is fire present. So wood firing is very similar to a gas firing, except instead of gasoline or propane, we're going to just use chopped wood. And like, I always laugh at people who are like, oh, I do wood firings, because they're always the same kind of people. They make big manly pots and they do big manly wood firings. And because in order to do a wood firing, you have to stoke the flames for days. So it can be a little time consuming, but it makes you feel like very rustic. I'm in the outdoors, I'm camping, I wood fire. And the last sort of firing we're going to talk about is raku. Raku is one of my favorite firings. We don't have a raku kiln here, or we do, but I have to fix it. So raku is really fun, and as far as clay goes, it is what we would consider immediate gratification. So you're going to take your pot and you're going to glaze it, and then you're going to heat it up real fast to white hot, and then take that out of the kiln. While it's white hot, you're going to open up the lid, pull it out with some tongs, and put it in a trash can full of like sawdust or paper. That paper's going to catch on fire, and you're going to create a reduction environment within that trash can, which will then cause your coppers to not go red, but to go bright copper, metallic. It'll also do sort of like oil slick purples and blues. You can do, so this is called a horsehair firing, and they will pull the piece out and they'll put horsehair on the side, and it'll make this sort of lightning effect. All of this is very cool, and if we were in a normal semester, we would be doing one of these for sure. But it's sort of a group activity, so I unfortunately not today, I guess. All right, cool. So that is the end of the terms and techniques presentation. I'm going to do a demo here in a minute, but let's go ahead and take like a 10-minute break. So I'll see you guys back here at 3:44.